for Monday, September 18th, 2023 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Councilmember Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina. Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Mario.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
There's no mayor's update. Are there any issue updates? Seeing none, item number 1C, marijuana industry and tax revenue update. Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, sir. A number of years ago, when I served on Parks, Recreation, Open Space Board, we were asked to reach out to council and thank them for their approval of the Central Rec Center. And I did, and I received a couple of replies back. One was a, "You're welcome." Another one was a response saying, well, it's all well and good as long as the marijuana tax revenue keeps coming in for many years to come. Now, we as a city have projected that the 2024 marijuana tax revenue will see a significant decrease. So I just wanted to find out the state of the marijuana tax revenue in the city and its projected expenditures, as well as find out the state of the industry, see how they're doing. I'd heard that there's some struggles taking place. People are being laid off. So I wanted to thank Trevor and Truman for being willing to step in and fill us in. Trevor, can you take it away, please?
Sure can. All right. Myself and Kirsten Claspel with the Budget Office will give a quick overview of it, and then we'll turn it over to Truman Bradley with the Marijuana Industry Group to talk about the status of the industry. A little bit of history with marijuana in Aurora, along with the state legalization. Aurora legalized it 2014, 2015, with a general sales tax rate initially of 3.75%, which is our general rate. Later on, an additional 2% special sales tax was added to that in 2015. Along with that ballot measure was the ability within council's discretion to increase that special sales tax to 10%, or a combined 13.75%. There was a 5% excise tax placed on cultivated product. This is paid for by the growers, the cultivations, when they transition the product or sell the product to retail operations. At the time, there were 24 stores authorized, 2 per ward. That's your retail outlets, and there was a application process, a rather in-depth application process to make sure these were going to be well-run operations and well-financed. In 2016, with an ordinance which is actually effective July 1st, 2017, the special sales tax was increased from 2 to 4%, or 7.75% total. 2018, there was a ballot issue to allow the sale and tax medical marijuana at the retail rate. That failed, so we do not have medical marijuana sold in retail outlets. It is allowed to be cultivated. In 2020, there was an additional 1% increase in the special sales tax effective July 1st, which got us to the 8.75%, and that was to fund youth violence prevention. In 2021, delivery of marijuana was authorized by City Council. Quick overview of the number of licensed operations we have in the city. Again, 24 retail stores. Because of the nature of how we did that without oversaturating the market, I think they fared well. And you know, again, these are well-run operations. I think in other jurisdictions you had some oversaturation and you know, made it more of a struggle perhaps at the retail levels and maybe not as good at operators. Cultivations, however, have really struggled, especially with the decrease in prices, and in particular when we talk about cultivations that aren't vertically integrated. We've lost 8 of those since early 2022, and I would say that we are probably at risk of losing up to another 3. Based on what I'm seeing. So the cultivations are pretty struggling, and actually a lot of these operations too, not all these were, there wasn't limitations like where there was with the retail stores on being well capitalized, and you know, some of these operations had other problems that really caused these issues, and they weren't able to survive a downturn in prices. So you're seeing a shakeout there. With product manufacturers, we got 15 of those. Those have remained fairly steady. Some of those are tied to cultivation, so we may have, some of those may have some issues. Transporter delivery, we have 3 of those. No testing at this time, and 1 hemp manufacturing license. Quick rundown of the taxes that we get. We have that 8.75% sales tax of marijuana. Again, that's made up of the 3.75 general sales tax. Each 1% is 1.264 million, or rounding up to 1.3 million. We have the 5% special sales tax. 2% is for council's determination of use. That's 2.6 million. Excuse me. 2% for homelessness services and housing projects. 2.6 million there, and 1.1% for community service agencies with youth violence prevention. 1.3 million. So 80% of the total revenue in the marijuana tax fund is from the city's 8.75% sales tax, 11.2 million. We also have that 5% excise tax that generates 832,000. And then we get $2 million shared from the state sales tax, the state's 15% sales tax rate. Here's kind of our comparison on our combined rates. You can see Aurora's fourth from the left there. This isn't necessarily everybody. This was just kind of what we could get pulled together in a short time frame here, and kind of present you some highlights of what's around. And you can kind of see where Aurora falls on that as far as the combined tax rate. The state tax rate again is 15%. So there's some local county rates, and the counties, some of the counties there have special tax rates in unincorporated areas, like Adams County does that. And I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Claspel from the Budget Office. One of the drivers of year-over-year revenue growth is the price of marijuana, and there has been some fluctuation since the start of the industry. The statewide wholesale market rate and the average retail price here shown as in Arapahoe County decreased significantly in the first few years as the industry and competition developed. Then in 2020, the demand for marijuana products spiked, and the market reacted with an increase in supply. When looking at prices during this time, wholesale prices increased at double-digit rates for about 2 years, while the average retail price increased by a more modest 3 to 4% per year. Since then, prices have decreased significantly, which has been blamed in part on the oversupply in the market after demand for marijuana products returned to a more normal level. Go back for a second. Sorry.
There we go.
Anyways, the wholesale market rate is now down 59% from the pandemic peak, though the latest publications show the start of a recovery, first increase since 2021. The average retail price in Arapahoe County was down almost 18% last year, and statewide numbers show another 10% so far in 2023. Next slide, please. And this is how all of this has translated into city sales tax revenue. You can see strong year-over-year increases in 2020 and the beginning of 2021. That was followed by substantial corrections, 2 straight years of negative growth. Sales tax revenue decreased by 11% in total last year. And that is less than the 18% in the retail price that I just showed you. And one explanation could be that an increase in demand offsets some of that revenue decline, but the net effect was negative for the city sales tax revenue. Next slide, please. This chart shows the revenue collections for each spending category, homelessness, youth violence prevention, and the general spending category, and the forecast through 2028. Last year was the first full year that sales tax revenue declined. Year-to-date sales tax is down by another 8.5%. That is very close to our projection that's in the 2024 proposed budget of 8.3%. When you compare the total 2021 sales tax revenue to our 2023 projection, that's a loss of $2.4 million. Looking into the future, the 5-year forecast assumes slow growth as oversupply tapers off. It does not assume a return to level seen during the height of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So how does the city spend marijuana dollars? Spending in the homelessness and the youth violence prevention programs are variable and are limited by the sales tax revenue collected by the two special sales tax rates. For that general spending category, council committed a fixed $10 million, $4 million for debt services for the central and southeast recreation centers, and $6 million for transportation projects and road maintenance. And you can see that in the general category, $10 million, that's pretty much exactly what the city collected in revenue last year. The unassigned revenue line item at the bottom of this table, that's the projected fund balance in the general spending category. And it shows that current projections assume a drawdown of fund balance through 2026. After that, this forecast assumes an annual revenue that annual revenue collections will again be sufficient to cover the budgeted expenditures of $10 million. Next slide, please. Here's some more detail. The debt service for each recreation center is $2 million each annually. Transportation projects and road maintenance can be divided into council-approved Tier 1 transportation projects, $4 million, and $2 million for street maintenance. On the homelessness program side, the program is projected to spend 100% of its fund balance in 2023. The 2024 budget is $2.5 million. That mirrors the revenue projection. The 2024 spending plan includes a notice of funding opportunity of $1.4 million, $550,000 for the continuation of the flexible housing fund, and a $500,000 reserve that can be used as a buffer in case revenue does not come in as high as projected, but it can also be used for projects that have not been determined or approved by council yet. For example, it could be used for some of the costs for the navigation campus. The budget for the youth violence prevention program is $1.9 million next year and includes a spending plan for 4 FTE, case management services, a consultant for focused deterrence, education evaluator, NOFO grants, and operating expenditures. So far, $1.3 million of the $1.9 million have been committed to specific projects and staffing. And this is the end of our presentation from the city side. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Mayor, I have a question, and that is, do we, and this may be more of an APD question, do we know how much influence illegal grows have in bringing down the market and affecting the market?
I don't know if Truman may have some broader industry knowledge on that. That's probably very tough to figure out and quantify because by nature they're illegal and unreported. So I think probably, kind of whatever we can catch. I don't know if Truman may have some broader based numbers. I know that was part of his presentation as well. So I might defer to him.
Is there a trajectory as whether that's increasing or decreasing? And certainly we, APD is, from time to time able to find them. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody from APD that can answer that? It's not. Other questions of staff?
Was there a question for APD? I'm sorry, this is Art.
Sorry, Bergen.
Okay, Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah. So on this, I know we're below what we were in that sales graph, but are we even with 2019? I was trying to figure that out. Like, I know that 2020 and 2021 kind of went a little bit by during the pandemic. So are we comparing ourselves always to the increase versus dollars? Like in 2019, because it looks, from the graph, it looks pretty much the same.
2023 projection is a little bit higher than 2019. One of the reasons that in 2019, there were still store openings in the first half. So the 24 stores were not open all year. But in general, there was an increase in the second half of 2019. And that, so we compare ourselves to that second half of 2019 when revenues
Yeah,
were.
so I guess what I'm getting at is so we're higher in 23 than we were in 19, which is good.
Right.
But the reason that we are having to, I guess, contemplate, decisions based on projections. If our debt is fixed at 10 million, then the variable amounts is based on the percentage, and that's why we're down. So they're not a fixed amount for homelessness, for example, or a fixed amount for youth violence.
Youth violence and homelessness, those programs don't have a fixed budget every year. That budget mirrors the revenue projection and goes up or down.
Okay. So, but every year when we increase every year that we have been until just recently, they just end up with a bigger budget every single year, correct? Basically, we're doing better.
Yes.
Okay. So that helps. And then I think there was one more. Well, that's it for now. Thank you.
Chief, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor, and in reference to your question about illegal grows, they continue to be a challenge across the country, including Colorado. Don't think that the legalized marijuana has had the impact on illegal grows that some folks thought they would have. And I don't have the specific numbers with me, but I can get you some of the data.
Well, I just, I just assume, well, you're right. I mean, probably illegal grows outside of Aurora could affect Aurora just as much.
Correct.
With same market, but I just wonder, maybe it's a national trend in terms of these taxes and these regulations. Are they driving more illegal grows, or is and the only way you can identify that is through apprehensions, or is it kind of stable where it's not really, it's having an influence on the market, but it's not having an influence on the decline of the market? I think if it would be just helpful to understand that.
Yeah, I think that what we've noticed nationwide is with the legalization of marijuana in certain parts of the country that the illegal grows continue. They're not paying taxes. They don't have overhead, and so that has not had the impact that I think law enforcement and even more so legislators thought it would have on the illegal drug trade. But I can get more information, more data, more up-to-date data, and share it with you all if you'd like me to.
I don't think we need it. I mean, if it could be communicated to the members, I don't know. I don't think we need an agenda item for it, but it'd be nice to know if there were any data out there.
We will. We'll get it, Mayor.
Thank you. Further questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilor Lawson.
Thank you. Kirsten, just a question, and I just want to understand this, especially underneath the YPP budget. And I think I've asked you about this before in a former email. So currently, they have budgeted 1.3 million, but they actually have 1.9 million in their budget. Is that how I'm reading that slide?
The 1.9 million is the budget for next year, and it assumes a projection of a spend down of $3.2 million this year. And so the $1.9 million is the new revenue in 2024
Okay.
of 1.2 million plus the projected year-end fund balance of 640,000.
And then their projection of having FTEs and operational costs is 1.3 million and only 500,000 to kids. Is that correct? For the grants, for the NOFO grants.
Is Jessica Prosser here to talk about the NOFO grants?
You don't have to talk about it. I just wanted to make sure that, is that what I'm kind of asking? Is their 1.3 includes all of that as well? The 500,000 for the NOFO grants that we give, but their operation balance is like 3 million and they're having all these FTEs. Is that correct? I'm not asking Jessica Prosser, I'm asking you, actually.
The
Is that-
3
I'm
million.
not trying to go into the
Yes.
programming. I'm just trying to get the numbers of what I'm trying to read here into this 1.3.
It includes a bit more than that. The
Okay.
staffing is about $385,000.
Okay,
There's also the case management. There is the consultant for focus deterrence, $200,000.
okay. Okay, that's
Yeah.
all I needed to know. I'll bring up something at the budget workshop. Thank you.
Councilor Combs.
Mayor, I think Kirsten answered my question with the addition of the spend down of remaining funds, because I was just confused about the 1% and 2% for YVPP and homelessness seeming out of balance, but it looks like they have that year end, that spend down, and that's why. So thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay, Truman.
Hi, Mayor, members of council. My name is Truman Bradley. I'm the executive director of the Marijuana Industry Group. Can I see a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? All right. Most of y'all are very familiar with the licensed cannabis industry in Colorado, so I've kept this presentation brief, but at the end of the day, I'm here to answer whatever questions you may have. The Marijuana Industry Group, or MIG, was established in 2010. We're the trade association for the regulated cannabis businesses here in Colorado, everywhere, in Aurora, the Western Slope, you name it. Next slide, please. So the question that I was asked to prepare was, why are sales down? And there's not one silver magic bullet about that. There are a number of contributing factors. One of the things I want to talk about is, since legalization, we've seen taxes go up roughly twice as fast as sales. What you see here, the top line is the total sales ever in the state of Colorado, and I had it peak at 2021. It's still going up. The total sales are going up, but the year over year sales are going down from the height of the pandemic. But we're still seeing sales tax increases, or at least attempts, whether that's at the ballot or elsewhere. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the things, if you'll indulge me briefly, is one of the reasons why marijuana businesses are not very profitable has nothing to do with the local level. It's at the federal level. Marijuana businesses, specifically related to sales, so dispensaries, are not able to take normal business deductions for things that they spend money on. This includes salaries for bud tenders, rent for the dispensary. Normally, if you had a coffee shop next door, for example, when they go to pay federal income tax, they brought in $1 million, they spent $500,000 on wages and what have you. Their taxable income is $500K. With a dispensary, if they bring in $1 million, but they spend $500,000, the IRS says, we don't allow you to take those deductions that any other business would take. We're going to tax you on the whole $1 million, even though you spent $500K in expenses. So next slide, please. So this is kind of a breakdown of what that would look like. So the middle column is what a dispensary would look like, and the far right column is what a coffee shop would look like for the exact same costs. And so the reason why I bring this up is because it speaks to why some companies have gone out of business. Now, none of the retailers in Aurora have, to my knowledge, but that's one of the reasons why the industry is so hard hit. And so anytime a municipality or a state is talking about taxes, it's good to understand there's both sales taxes that both the customer and the business end up paying, as we know from microeconomics. There's excise taxes, which is when you tax the plant, and then there's income tax, which we're all pretty much familiar with. So anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk on IRS Code 280E. What I will say is, since I submitted the slides for this, the federal government has started to make some news around a possible rescheduling of marijuana, which would change this exact tax calculation dramatically. And happy to talk more about that. But anyway, next slide, please. Okay, so this just shows in visual form what I was talking about, the difference in net income between a marijuana company and any other retail company. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple of things that have happened since Aurora legalized. Overall, the Colorado model has worked pretty well. Most states that have adopted legalization since Colorado use the Colorado rules as a framework and then make their tweaks on top of that. So Missouri's a good example. It's almost a carbon copy of the Colorado code. Youth use hasn't gone up here in Colorado. Crime rates haven't gone up until about a year ago, which it's kind of hard to pin on cannabis. So those are good things. That are hurting the industry right now, the tax rates that I talked about, over-regulation, which is the other part of the profit equation, which is the marijuana rulebook is now over 500 pages long. The state's alcohol rulebook is 112 pages long. And so as we've been facing downward sales, we've also been facing increased costs on the regulatory side. And then, of course, reduced sales. Next slide, please. So these are just a couple headlines I snipped from the last 12 months. Sales wise, we had the worst 420, which is essentially our Black Friday, if you will, in 5 years. So next slide, please. Okay, so why is this happening? So let's look at the numbers. Medical sales are down approximately 50%. That doesn't impact Aurora, but it's important to look at that. Why is that happening? 2 reasons. Number one, some purchase limits went into effect that made it harder to buy medical cannabis. It's also harder to go see the doctor now and more expensive. So some folks have just left the medical market entirely. And to the mayor's point, some of the medical folks have gone back to the old ways because at the end of the day, if you're sick or your kid is sick, you're going to do whatever you need. That's kind of fundamental. On the rec side, sales are down for a number of reasons. Number one, overproduction. We had 2 of the best outdoor harvests we've ever had. Some business owners didn't see the COVID bubble for what it was, which was everyone was stuck in their home. But there were other factors as well. Both of the southern states that border Colorado have legalized since then, both New Mexico and Arizona. So we don't get the tourism that we used to get. You know, when Aurora legalized, we were one of the only states for almost 1,000 miles where you could buy legal marijuana. You know, those days are over now. And so some of that is just the market we have is the market we have. But we also have seen inflation hurt when people are spending more money on groceries, more money on rent, more money on gas in the tank. They're spending less money on marijuana. So those are a few things. The impacts, in addition to the city losing revenue, as you've seen, we've also lost 10,000 employees last year that got laid off. Those are plant touching employees, some of whom were in Aurora. You saw the closures on the cultivation side. And I meant to say this earlier. Please stop me at any time if you have questions, or we can hold them to the end. However you want to do it. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I talked about all of these except for the 4th bullet down, which is competition. Some of the surrounding municipalities around Aurora have also legalized, and in other places across the state. So for example, Grand Junction legalized. Their stores haven't come online yet, but when they do, the surrounding towns that have already legalized are going to take a hit, so to speak, because the folks that are coming from Junction to buy there are just going to buy in town. The reverse is true for Aurora. So some places have legalized both to the east and to the northwest. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the future, I'm not sure how you folks got the projections that you have, and frankly, I hope they're right. One of the things I look at is the Marijuana Enforcement Division publishes a live Tableau dashboard that's always about 3 months in arrears. And one of the things they publish, which is I've never seen anywhere else, is the number of plants in the ground statewide. So the bottom dark line are medical plants. The top lighter green line are recreational plants. And you can see the breakouts. So sort of at the height of the pandemic, there were 1.1 million marijuana plants in the ground statewide at any given time. At the end of June. Now, that same time period, 782,000. If you look at the med side, it's been cut even in half. So I see this as one of the ways in which to build a forecast is you can look at how many plants are, you know, what supply is there going to be. Last year, we had some big closures statewide, including Curaleaf, which was the largest multi-state operator in Colorado. They closed their doors and sold off their inventory and didn't plant anything. And so that's one of the reasons why sales were, you know, have been so low and are only just now rising. Is when a giant MSO sells through its inventory, you're going to see that hit even in Aurora. Next slide, please. Another thing on that state dashboard, they look at sales, they look at price per gram for recreational flower by county. And there are just a few that I've cherry picked. Now, the state's Tableau dashboard has different numbers on the y-axis, unfortunately, so it's a little bit tricky to see visually. But Aurora's sort of always, or I should say usually, above Denver in terms of what the actual price per gram is in the county. I know you can't really see the city. So you can always sort of look to see what Denver is and then bump up a tiny bit. Why are Aurora sales higher than Denver sales on a price per gram? Two reasons. Number one, you don't have the number of dispensaries. You only have 2 dozen. And so Denver is a more competitive place. And number two, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what I was going to say. But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to point out about neighbors legalizing is down south with Pueblo, obviously the southern municipalities have been hard hit because they were relying on cross-border traffic, if that makes any sense. Next slide, please. Okay, that's pretty much it. In terms of ways that sales could go up, there are a few shocks to the system that could happen. At the federal level, some sort of change there would probably increase demand. Hospitality and or delivery could also potentially increase demand. For example, it's not legal at the state level to deliver to hotels. You know, we know that there are people traveling to Colorado who want to buy marijuana who you know, aren't leaving their hotels. Another would be a potential sales limit increase at the state level. Right now, it's legal to possess 2 ounces of flour and the equivalent in concentrates, but you can only purchase half of that at one store. So those would be a couple. And then the illicit market, obviously, as taxes go up, that helps the illicit market because they don't pay taxes. So exactly when does somebody switch and go back to the dude in the cul-de-sac? I can't tell you the answer to that question, but it's something we worry about if prices go up. So happy to talk more about anything or answer your questions. And my contact info is on the slide. So thank you very much.
Questions of the presenter?
Mayor Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I had 2 questions. One on the delivery. You said 5 stores hold delivery permits, but it's down from 17. What caused that to be down?
Demand primarily. They just didn't see the demand for the delivery that they had anticipated, and we lost a couple deliverers as well, independent delivery agents.
Okay. Those that were able to, when we made that change, I think it was last year, the year before, I can't remember, on who could do delivery, did that impact it at all in terms of who, if someone was already delivering, but they were not able to anymore, or they weren't applying for permits?
Well, it wasn't authorized at all prior to that. So when that was actually authorizing it for everybody, and we allowed the stores themselves to obtain delivery permits. And if it wasn't from one of our stores, they had to use a social equity transporter. And we authorized licenses for them. My
question then. So the stores are not delivering, but the other, if you had the right to go to deliver, but not the store wasn't doing it. Do we have that information?
Yeah, so that's the 3 number I had in there, the 3. Yeah, okay. And so I'll tell you, that's one of the struggles they have is the stores can obtain their own permit. And so for those independent deliverers, if they're basically, you know, got to work with stores that didn't obtain their own delivery permit. So again, you know, it's like a middleman.
Okay, great. That answered it for me. And then my other actually comment, I think the presenter said that youth usage is not going up. I beg to differ. I talk to police officers all the time and I talk to school teachers all the time. and they tell me it's rampant. And we have a huge increase in youth violence. And if you look at the courts and you go through with the GAs and so forth, a lot of them will tell you, yes, there's a drug addiction problem. So I just question that. It's just a comment, but thank you.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor Gardner.
Yeah.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to dance because no one wants to see me dance, but I told you so. I'll just say that to a lot of the people in this group. When there was a sales tax increase on cannabis, sales of cannabis in front of this council several years ago, and all we've heard tonight from both our staff and the outside industry group is the primary cause, or one of the primary causes of decrease in sales is the regulatory burden and the increase in taxes. Very disappointing, that we increase taxes. It's a burden on the industry, as it is with any business, and why legislators and policymakers out of one side of their mouth say we should treat cannabis like any other business, and out of the other side of their mouth continue to go back to cannabis as their to fund pet projects and treat it like a cash cow. I won't understand. That all to say, Councilmember Drinsky and I are co-sponsoring a sales tax decrease on the cannabis industry, sales tax rate decrease that'll be coming forward to study session in 2 weeks.
Further discussion or comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation. Is there any objection to moving the consent calendar forward item number 2A through 2J? Seeing none, item number 2A through 2J of the consent calendar will move forward. Item number 3A, Aurora Arts Ahead, Cultural Arts Plan 2023 to 36 approval. Midori Clark, Director of Library and Cultural Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some exciting information about our upcoming arts plan. I am joined tonight on the meeting by Carrie Drum, who is our consultant at Purpose Aligned Consulting, who was the consultant we used to do the arts plan. I'm going to try to share this. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so tonight it's my honor to share with you Aurora Arts Ahead Cultural Arts Plan 2023, the latest version that we have. So before we get into the arts plan, I want to just share with you a little bit about our Cultural Services Division. We have 4 program areas within the division, and they are Art in Public Places, Cultural Arts Education, Aurora Fox Arts Center, and Aurora History Museum and Historic Sites. These 4 program areas have a tremendous amount of impact within the city of Aurora, and we wanted to put together a sheet that showed kind of the full story of the community impact. So for 2022, we had over 100,000 participants in our Cultural Services Division. And how that kind of breaks out with our Aurora Fox Arts Center, 5 shows were produced in 2022. That space is made up of 2 performance stages, our 242-seat main stage, as well as a 72-seat box studio. That team raised $38,000 in private donations and sold about $130,000 worth of tickets. The total attendance at the Fox for 2022 was just under 7,000 attendees. Our arts education program is the team that is responsible for all of the different classes that citizens can take. And in 2022, they offered 826 classes throughout the year. They had over 44,000 participants in these classes, which is a 25% increase over the prior year. That group, minus the dance classes, they raised $304,000 in revenue through their classes. And then our art education outreach team also was able to connect with over 17,500 participants. Our Art in Public Places program has 356 artworks that are valued at $4.5 million. And 2022 was a very busy year for that team. 15 new artworks were installed that year, and an additional 15 were cleaned and restored. In addition to kind of the big public art pieces, that team also curated 15 different art exhibits that were shown at 3 different libraries and experienced by more than 40,000 people. I mentioned our Aurora Dance Arts team a little bit before. They had 11 performances and recitals in 2022, 2,700 students, and they earned $48,000 in revenue. I apologize, I have to cough for just. Excuse me. Sorry. Our Aurora History Museum and Historic Sites curated 47 exhibits at 9 different locations throughout the city. They had 10,600 museum visitors and over 650 participants in educational programs. And then our historic sites team, that's also under that umbrella, manages 32 historic landmarks, 2 historic districts, and 2 cultural heritage sites. So why is arts and culture important for flourishing communities? Well, arts and culture are really the building blocks of personal agency, as well as voice. It really is that kind of activity that spurs creativity and imagination, simulates empathy, deepens that cross-cultural understanding, and encourages discipline and teamwork. And I just like to use an example from my own history of being in that high school play. You know, how many of us did that kind of activity? You've got folks that are working on stage management, props, costumes, actors that are learning lines, a teacher that's helping put it all together. And it's really about everybody pulling their weight and kind of doing their own piece to come up with that great finished product. And during that creative process, we're constantly learning skills that we're really using every day. Things like decision making, prioritization, strategy, and then, of course, that collaborative problem solving. So, a little bit about the arts plan history. Our first community arts plan was published in 1993. And after that, the next art plan was published and covered the years of 2016 to 2020. And this, of course, is the city's third cultural arts plan, Aurora Arts Ahead Cultural Arts Plan 2023-2026. As I mentioned previously, for this plan, we did contract with Purpose Aligned Consulting way back in the fall of 2022, so just about a year ago. And we had a total of 665 participants who provided feedback through a variety of methods, including surveys, input sessions, focus groups, and individual interviews. So I'm really excited that this art plan truly does reflect the priorities of the residents that we spoke with. We're excited that it provides direction as a roadmap to bring the city's diverse arts, culture, and history to the forefront. We also recognize that resources are not infinite. The city has resources, other organizations have resources, so we really want to leverage all of those things to combined create a really incredible arts environment in this community. And then, of course, just enriching the lives of residents and visitors alike is another part of this plan. So I'll start with some of the major findings after we spoke with all these folks. And Carrie, please feel free to pipe in if I'm missing anything on this. But one of the first things that was very evident that people were telling us is Aurorans want more cultural arts programming. And you can see this is just a snapshot here of one of our survey questions. Would you like more opportunities to engage in arts and culture in Aurora? And as you can see, there's just an overwhelming response for agree and strongly agree. Our second major finding is that arts and culture facilities remain a top priority for folks that live in this community. We just again picked another snapshot to share with you all that illustrated this point. And the question was, how important is it for Aurora to have a multi-purpose facility for arts and culture activities and events? And you can see there again, the vast majority, it's very important, but even for 106 respondents, it still continues to be somewhat important. Our third major finding is that communications and marketing have gotten better, but there is always room for improvement. And, you know, we have a lot of folks that tell us, oh, if we knew about it, we would like to come. So we wanted to just share again another little snapshot that kind of illustrates this point. Which of the following factors keep you from attending or participating in more art and cultural activities in Aurora? And you can see the top response getter is, I just don't know what's being offered. So some additional findings from the feedback we gathered were that festivals and community events are important. People really want to go to unique events that are well attended. There's also an idea that people really like the idea of increased arts education opportunities, particularly for youth. Aurora's creative community is siloed and needs more facilities. And then lastly, Aurora's diversity is a strength, and people are still very interested in access, inclusion, and equity in the arts. So after sorting through all that feedback, Carrie helped us create some priorities for our culture and arts moving forward. And the first priority is around programming in space. So, enhancing and expanding access to the arts, culture, and history through diverse programming and improved facilities. So, I think one of the things that I really heard a lot about under this topic was that people are excited about what Aurora has to offer. They would love to see existing facilities improved. I think some specific things that came up were seats at the Fox, some specific improvements to the museum. Carrie, is there anything else you want to add around feedback that we heard that helped inform this priority?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Midori. Both people were interested in new facilities, but they were also really interested in retrofitting or improving the facilities you have currently.
Our second priority is around visibility, and really this idea that we elevate the profile of Aurora's arts, culture, and history. So, a little bit about what we were saying before. There is a little bit of a gap in the public's knowledge of what's available. And really, by improving our outreach, our marketing, our communications to really just kind of share with people all of the incredible opportunities that are available at the city of Aurora. There were a lot of different pieces of feedback around this specific thought. I think everything from like a one calendar to go to for all arts and culture, to different kinds of email options and things like that. Carrie, is there anything you want to add around this?
Just highlighting the multilingual portion. I think this was the first time this report or survey had been done in a language other than English, and community members were pretty were positive about that, and so they also were interested in receiving more information about availability of arts and culture in languages that they may speak beyond English.
Great, thank you. The third priority is connection, and specifically strengthening the connection in Aurora's creative community. So, a lot of what we heard from the community was just really the importance of bringing creatives together, and really how can the city help foster that collaboration, and help to support this creative network within the city. Carrie, is there anything else you want to say about that?
I'll just add an example. In some of our community input sessions, there were creatives who had never met each other that were doing similar type of work, and we're very excited that they had come into interaction in just an input session. So I think there's definitely the desire for spaces in which creatives can interact and share what they're doing and leverage each other's resources.
Our fourth priority is economic impact, and really this idea of trying to quantify economic impact and how much revenue we're generating. So we know that the arts economy is very strong in our community, but we don't always do the best job of really sharing that business case and explaining the ROI. So part of why we wanted to put those statistics together about the Cultural Services Division, specifically when I started out this presentation, was to really help folks understand the impact, the quantifying impact of arts within our community. There was a lot of discussion around this, I think, at all of our different sessions. Carrie, do you want to add anything about this?
No, I think there's also some creative ways and ideas that folks had about revenue generation beyond what y'all are already doing. So that was both exciting and fun. And I think if you look at the plan, you'll get into and see some of the details there. There's some details around the revenue generation piece as well.
And then our final priority, the fifth priority, is around internal infrastructure, increasing internal effectiveness. And this is really kind of more of an internally focused priority around our Cultural Services Division, as well as our boards and commissions. We have 9 boards and commissions that we work with at Library and Cultural Services, and really this idea of creating a kind of a unified direction for the whole division and boards and commissions so we can all coordinate better, really rally around specific goals and purpose. Carrie, anything else you want to add around that?
Nope, you said it perfectly, Midori. Thanks.
Okay. I will just say, in the plan, if you do take Carrie's advice and kind of read further into the drilled down action items for each one of these priorities, there are some really fun and exciting things that I think will come to fruition, hopefully. I just want to mention one of them is an arts award program for the city of Aurora. We don't currently have anything like that. And we're looking forward to really working with our boards and commissions to identify some arts leaders within our community through this new awards program. So our next steps, we've taken this to staff. With our cultural services team, we have also taken it to the Cultural Affairs Commission as well as the PR Policy Committee. And our next step is really just the question for council. Do you wish to approve Aurora Arts Ahead Cultural Arts Plan 2023-2026? And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving this plan forward? Seeing none, then the plan will move forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see, snow removal and plowing operations on local streets.
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes. So I sponsored this particular program to allow HOAs and special districts to be able to do their own snow plowing. This kind of came up a lot during some of the recent snowstorms where we were not able to obviously plow residential roads, which we as a city don't typically do. So for and I'll turn it over to Lynn, but basically, the HOAs or the special districts would have to opt in to do their snow plowing. They have to have an agreement with the city, and they have to also meet a variety of different standards in terms of operators, maintenance, and equipment used, as well as to relieve the city of liability for any damage, and they must carry insurance. So hopefully we'll get some response, and I'll turn it over to Lynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lynn Center. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works in charge of operations. And I'm here, as Councilmember Bergen mentioned, to present to you a proposal to allow special districts and HOAs to plow residential streets within their boundaries. So the plan for my presentation is to give you a little bit of an overview of our snow plan. We'll talk a little bit about residential snow plowing strategies and how we got to this point, and then our proposed next steps. So our snow plan goal overall is to provide public safety access. The plan is designed to maintain emergency vehicle access to primary routes throughout a snow event. We have more than 90 pieces of equipment towards this effort, and we have prioritized arterial streets, collector streets, some secondary routes and residential through streets, as well as some main through streets out in the rural and outlying areas. We also use both liquid anti-icer and granular de-icer chemicals to keep our streets passable. We don't plow to bare pavement during a snow event, and that is to help keep these chemicals on the pavement where they're doing the best work for us. Where they help is that when we come back after the snow stopped, we are actually plowing down to bare pavement rather than a layer of ice. Our snow plan sets out 4 priorities for snow routes and 4 storm categories. Our route priorities are based loosely on the roadway classification. So as you can see on this slide, our priority 1 routes are shown as red on our maps, and those are primarily our arterial roadways. Priority 2 routes are shown in blue on our maps, and these are primarily collector roads and roads in front of schools and hospitals. Priority 3 are shown as green on our maps, and these are neighborhood residential connector streets. So these are streets that go through a neighborhood and connect on either end to collector streets or arterial streets. And then finally, our last priority, our priority 4, are shown as yellow on our maps. And these are our main north, south, east, west connectors out in the east area of the city. Our 4 storm categories are based loosely on the amount of snowfall that we get. So category 1 snowstorms are less than 2 inches. Category 2 snowstorms are in that 2 to 6 range. Category 3 are 6 to 12. Anything over 12 inches is a category 4 event. I've also shown you here the number of storms we've had in each category since 1994, and then the average number of storms we have per season for each category. So this is showing a typical route map that we produce. And you will see that our arterial roadway network, the Alameda, Chambers, Mississippi, Buckley are shown in red. And then our collectors, Kalispell Way, Kentucky Avenue, Richfield Street, and Ohio Drive are our blue streets. So they're our second priority streets. And then the green here is a really good example of those neighborhood collectors that we talk about, those connecting streets that go through the neighborhood. And on this particular route map, the yellow that's shown here is actually the R line. It's obviously not a yellow prioritized snow removal route. We have a total of just over 1,500 lane miles of roads prioritized for snow removal. And in 2022 or 2023, so this last snow season, we spent a little over $1.3 million for the season. which is about $3.39 per resident. We're currently updating the maps, and we're going to be doing a deeper dive into our snow plan with council at a study session in October to familiarize you a little bit more with our complete snow plan and predictions for this coming winter. So in summary of our snow and ice control plan, as I mentioned before, it is designed to maintain access for emergency and public safety operations on our primary roadways. During an event, we'll start with the red routes, and when they reach a point where though emergency access is sustained or the snowfall's ended, then we'll move into blue routes and etc. The opposite is also true. When we are having trouble maintaining a certain priority route, we will drop the priority below it. So we drop in reverse priority order. But our goal is to always maintain those red routes at our arterial network open for public safety vehicles. For our category 4 snow events, remember those are greater than 12 inches, our plan does include deployment of contracted plow services to assist us to keep those priority routes open as weather conditions warrant. Residential streets are not prioritized for snow plowing. We typically only remove snow for these streets after an extreme snowfall event, which could be greater than 12 inches or more. It all just depends on the weather conditions. There's only been one time in my history with the city where we've deployed contract services to plow residential streets during a snowstorm, and that was the 2026-2027 blizzard that dumped 3 feet of snow on the city.
I'm sorry, what year was that again?
2006 to 2007. I probably said sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, so now I'd like to go a little bit into residential snow plowing and some of the strategies and considerations. So following the bomb cyclone in 2019, we really began exploring different ways that we could potentially provide snow plowing to our residential streets. And one of the strategies we looked at closely was allowing special districts and HOAs to plow their public residential streets within their boundaries. And these would be streets that we don't normally plow. We developed a pilot program with the High Plains Metro District that serves the Blackstone neighborhood, and we entered into an IGA with them to allow them to plow the residential streets within their boundaries. That IGA was approved in January of 2021, and it expired in June of 2022. And then, as you all will recall, this last December through February, we had some really extreme weather conditions that we haven't seen for a long time. It snowed fairly regularly there for a little bit, but it got cold and it stayed cold for a really long time. And that resulted in a lot of ice buildup. And we kind of feel if we had given some of these HOAs and special districts the opportunity to plow their streets, that we might have avoided some of that ice buildup. So we have developed a snow and ice control plan template and an IGA template to allow special districts and HOAs to plow within their boundaries. And the template IGA was attached as backup to this item in your packet. So our proposal, we're going to open the program to special districts, which would include metro districts and business improvement districts or BIDs, and established or formalized HOAs. We potentially will be implementing in October of 2023 if this is approved, which means we'll start negotiating with the interested HOAs and districts in October, and could potentially have our first IGAs going to council this coming November. IGAs can be executed for a period of 1 to 5 years in duration. And then one of the significant things that we're proposing in this proposal is to modify the traditional IGA approval process if the template is used without any significant changes. So the modifications would be eliminating the policy committee and study session meetings that usually an IGA has to go through, and then approving the IGA at a single regular council meeting with a waiver of the reconsideration period. These modifications would save us about 2 months of procedure and would allow staff to process the anticipated volume of requests during the summer months. So we're not taking away from our winter operations to process these IGAs, but we can still get them done before snow starts to fall. If this proposal is approved for this first season, as I mentioned before, we anticipate bringing the IGAs to council for approval in November. This is an allowed activity. It's not a required activity. So the districts and HOAs aren't required to plow their streets, but we're allowing them to do that. So as part of the IGA, the district or HOA is required to develop and provide a snow removal plan and procedures for our review. We have developed a template of a snow plan that is based on our snow plan that we will be rolling out to the stakeholder group probably after this meeting if we're approved to move forward. They're required to use specific equipment and materials such as rubber edged blades for the plows, and they're also not allowed to use sand and salt if they're going to use materials. They have to provide services at least at the same level as the city would provide. They have to submit monthly season to date reports. So we are expecting monthly reports from them as we move through the season. They have to carry insurance with the city shown as additional insured and be responsible to repair any damage caused by their operations. And then finally, they have to submit a postseason report that includes details of each deployment that they made throughout the year. So our proposed next steps, right now we're at that first bullet point, study session early September. And then regular session, the next meeting in September that's available with a request for waiver of reconsideration of this resolution so that we can move forward into negotiation with some of our interested districts and HOAs. We will, after this meeting, if we're approved to move forward, we will begin our outreach and engagement for our districts and HOAs that have shown interest. And hoping to negotiate those IGAs in October so that we can start bringing them to council for approval in November. That's the end of my presentation. Our question for council is, does council support moving the proposed resolution to the next regular session for approval with a waiver of reconsideration? And I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving this proposal forward to the next regular session
Mayor.
with waiver reconsideration? Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to thank Lynn for the presentation. And as we mentioned at TAPS, I'm hopeful that folks take advantage of the programs. I know when we did the Blackstone pilot, they never utilized it, but I think this is a good effort. So hopefully folks pick it up. Thank you.
Further questions? Is there any objection to moving it forward? Seeing none, I will move item number 3A. I'm sorry, item number 3B will move forward. Item number 3C, and thank you for the presentation. Item number 3C, Arapahoe County Department of Human Services, Aurora Police Department Memorandum of Understanding. Interim Chief Acevedo. Chief.
Mayor, this is Pete Schulte. He had texted me and said that he was jumping in his car. He's going to try to get online on his phone. I think he's probably still in that process.
Very well.
Mayor, this is Megan Platt. I can briefly provide a few talking points on this item. This item was originally in policy committee as a consent item. I believe it was mistakenly slated for 30 minutes tonight. This is an IGA with Arapahoe County Department of Human Services just to cooperate regarding investigations related to child abuse and neglect. It's just the same agreement that we'd have with them for a number of years, and we're just restarting this agreement similar to what we have with other county Department of Human Services agencies.
Questions of staff? And so what is the ask?
The ask is just to move the item forward to the regular meeting.
Very well, the memorandum of understanding.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any objection to moving it forward? Seeing none, item number 3C will move forward. Item number 3D. I brought item number 3D forward after Denver passed their ordinance addressing the enforcement provisions for trailers, semi-trailers, and RVs. Earlier this year, Denver amended their ordinance pertaining to the regulation and enforcement of the parking of vehicles on their streets. The city code is requested to be amended to make the city's ordinance pertaining to the regulation and enforcement of the parking of vehicles on the city's public rights of way and streets to be at least as strict as Denver's ordinances. Some of the city's current ordinances were stricter than Denver's ordinances and require no change. The proposed amendments result in increased regulation in response to parking patterns across the city, and specifically include authorizing the impoundment of an unlawful vehicle parked on the public right-of-way for more than 24 hours rather than 48 hours after being cited as an unlawful vehicle. The weight limit of semi-trailers, trailers and commercial vehicles in excess of 22 feet in length is reduced to 6,000 pounds from the previous 7,000 pounds to be consistent with the city's UDO and Denver's weight limits. Recreational vehicles can be parked on the public rights of way for no more than 24 hours during a 7-day period rather than the previous 5-day period. The changes to city code will be operationalized by the Works Department and the Aurora Police Department. And let me turn over to staff to walk you through the proposal in more detail.
Mayor, this is Jason Batchelor. I think you did a great job providing a summary there. I appreciate that. We have a number of staff available to answer in-depth questions from council, including staff from Park Aurora and Public Works, as well as the Aurora Police Department that would be involved in this. And then we also have staff from the City Attorney's Office who can answer any questions in terms of this. I think maybe this is a good time, if we could, to ask somebody from the City Attorney's Office to perhaps just give us a quick update and confirmation of state law as it pertains to the requirement for a police officer to be present prior to a vehicle getting towed. So can someone from the City Attorney's Office take that one?
Sure, Jason. Pete Schulte, good evening, Mayor, Council. As you know, Pete Schulte, manager public or the public safety team for the City Attorney's Office. So under state law, I know that we had some public invited to be heard last week that talked about that statute that says, just written direction. What state law requires is there's other laws that there are other laws out there that require police to be present. For example, if we as the city through our police department are actually authorizing a vehicle to be a private citizen's vehicle to be removed from the street, that requires that it come from a sworn post-certified police officer. Couple reasons. One is an inventory has to be done. Everybody knows that the inventory is the search of the vehicle that protects the police department, protects the city, protects the owner of the vehicle, and in essence, it could most likely protect the towing company, right? So if the citizen comes out and says, "You stole $5,000 out of my vehicle," you say, "No, that wasn't on the inventory." Second of all, there is a requirement that if we're instigating the tow, there is a kind of an understanding that we police department are going to be there to provide safety for the tow truck operator. The risk is, the liability with that is if we have a tow truck driver that is picking up a vehicle because we put out a ticker saying that this vehicle is authorized to be towed and something happens to that individual without police protection, there could be some issues for the city. So when you combine all those laws around, the correct the correct argument is probably to the legislature. But I think with all the safeguards in place that have been around for years, I don't know if there's, again, there might be. I don't think there is much appetite at the legislature to change the rules, but I know a lot of cities are dealing with what we're dealing with the reduction in police officers. So, but that's the kind of the status. And when we put all those laws together, we just can't, under state law right now, allow non-police officers to allow a tow to happen.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving item number 3D forward? Seeing none, item number 3D will move forward. Item number 5A, Aurora Borealis Festival presentation. Councilmember Marcano.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I am very excited to talk about the Aurora Borealis Fest with y'all. So this is something that we have been discussing on the Visit Aurora board, one of the subgroups actually for the board. So the idea behind this is to create an effort that will bring our community together, and that's going to be capitalizing off of our community's demand for events and unique things to do here in the city. And this is one that I think really complements the holiday season well. And also, I don't know if y'all have had a chance to read through our budget packet yet, but this is also in line with the recommendations from the Arts, Entertainment, and Culture CABC subcommittee. So that's a bonus there. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Bruce Dalton for a rundown on what we're thinking.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to present the Aurora Borealis Festival, a celebration of lights. Can you see my presentation?
No.
And somebody present for me, and I'll just roll them through. Oh, here you go. How's that?
Nope. Oh, there we go.
One more time.
All right. Now you're there.
All right. Again, I am here to present the Aurora Borealis Festival, a celebration of light. This slide explains the strategic planning process that Visit Aurora has gone through since 2022, including our Destination Management Committee, which the members of the committee are listed on the slide, presenting to our full board of directors with the recommendation and approval to move forward to presenting this evening to the City Council. Visit Aurora has hired industry experts and advisors to assist us in the planning process. We hired Creative Strategies Group. Bruce Early, who's the CEO of Creative Strategies Group, is a pioneer and a thought leader in the festivals and events industry for more than 40 years. He's also a Hall of Fame member of the International Association of Festivals and Events. He's consulted with hundreds of festivals and events throughout the country and has an expertise in selling corporate sponsorship. We also took the committee down to Grapevine as well as some city leaders to experience their holiday festival and how they partner with the city to create a fabulous month-long event for the city of Aurora. The development plan of the event is to create an affordable world-class signature event in the city, to wow audiences and lighting effects and illumination installations, to create a nationally recognized attraction for the city, to encourage excitement within the destination and enhance city pride, and to generate economic impact for the city through attracting more visitors, and to create a local canvas for local artists to showcase their talents. Lighting installations that engage the audience will create lasting memories. Here's a quote from the International Light Festival Organization Board of Directors. Who knew there was one? But we've been diving more and more into this lighting world. And it's a great quote and also a great picture of the Aurora Borealis. Some other examples of international lighting festivals and events, worldwide events, and we'd love to add Aurora to that international list. We have not fully decided on all the installations, but we'll work over the next 12 months in really deciding what's affordable for our destination, but also effective in promoting the event to the citizens as well as the world. Also included in the Borealis Festival will be a marketplace bazaar supporting Aurora's local artisan, creator community, and small business by hosting a marketplace during this pre-holiday event where guests can find unique handmade gifts, crafts, and arts. We'll also include a Flavors of Aurora food experience, and everyone knows that Aurora is well known for its variety of and diversity of international restaurants and eateries. This culinary showcase will provide the opportunity for Aurora restaurants, caterers, and food trucks to share their tastes and flavors and promote future business for themselves. Entertainment stage or stages will be included. Performances and presentations provide a sense of connection, community, and education, while all fostering civic pride. And we'll kick it all off November 1st of 2023 with the Aurora Borealis Kickoff Festival, which will be an interactive lighting experience within Comida Cantina restaurant at the Stanley Marketplace. This kickoff event will focus on media, social media influencers, potential sponsors, and VIPs from Aurora. And after the indoor experience, we'll lead the group outside to experience the first ever Aurora, Colorado drone show. And Visit Aurora will also partner with the Stanley Marketplace, as well as other partners throughout the city, in promoting the drone show through our social media networks, because the idea is really to have as many people out to experience the drone show as possible. And our ask, as well as the Aurora Borealis Festival, will be fully funded by Visit Aurora and supported by the city of Aurora. And our ask is a formal approval to move forward with the creation of the 2024 Aurora Borealis Festivals the first week of November in 2024. Also approval to partner with the city of Aurora and the pros department to develop a plan to use the Aurora Sports Park as the location of the 2024 festival, and present to the city council a final detailed plan at the end of the second quarter in 2024. So that is my presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any question anyone has on the Aurora Borealis Festival.
Questions of Bruce?
I got a quick question, Mayor Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for the presentation. This looks really cool. And Councilmember Marcano, very cool. I may have missed this, but does this include the casting of like high definition images and video on a building like we've seen before?
So really the plan is still in developmental stages, but we've been working with a company called Macdyne, and what they do, and technology is changing daily on these lighting installations. You can actually take a mesh LED screen and cover an entire building, and then through a computer, you can actually create whatever you want within that building. So the lighting installations that we've seen even just a few years ago are really outdated, because now this LED mesh can cover an entire building or walls, and it can be computer programmed to do many different things. And one of the ideas and thoughts that we have is to create our own Borealis effect over whatever festival space that we'll utilize the first year of this event.
And did you have a big building in mind or something like that?
So really what we're talking about doing is producing the event at the sports park. So there's many different areas within the sports park, and you have to understand that this festival will start out as a 3-day event and then hopefully build and grow as it goes. But not only will we want to work with these lighting installation experts on creating this Borealis effect, but then we'll also work with other organizations on bringing different elements of light into the festival. And then on top of all of that, a marketplace and a food experience and live music, and all with the idea that this will be a affordable festival that all of Aurora citizens can be able to experience.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, I think this is a cool idea. The only thing I would say is that you should have it at the Aurora Reservoir, because it would emit light over the water, and it would be beautiful.
Yes, but unless you could walk on water, we would have on.
I think Councilmember Bergen probably thinks that she can.
Well, anyway, yes, I just think that the Aurora Sports Park would be the perfect location to be able to have access of parking, electricity, restrooms, and all the other elements that would really create the infrastructure to produce this type of event.
Yeah, that's a better word.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear everybody's excited. And Councilmember Bergen, I love that idea for like a drone show or something like that. I think that would be awesome. So
Sounds
yeah.
good.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving?
Mayor, we're basically seeking approval to move forward with our kickoff festival, which will happen November 1st, and then to work with the pros department as well as the city departments on creating a plan to utilize the Aurora Sports Park.
Let me just ask, does this require an appropriation? I mean, is there a fiscal note to this?
Mayor?
Is there somebody, Councilmember McConnell?
Yeah, thank you. No, when we've been discussing this would all come out of Visit Aurora's budget, basically. So, yeah, obviously we would love staff's cooperation and coordination and council approval for it, and that's why we're having the discussion.
Is there any objection to moving this plan forward? Seeing none, I will move forward.
Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all.
Let's see, item number 5B, policy for honorary street naming. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I'm going to actually talk about both items 5B and 5C at the same time. They're kind of go together, but 5B creates a policy for honorary street naming. So essentially what this does allows council via a resolution to name a street after a significant person in Aurora history. And why it's an honorary street naming rather than an actual street renaming is there are obviously significant cost concerns with a street renaming. CAD systems have to be renamed, businesses have to redo letterhead, things like that. And so this policy, I worked with Deputy City Manager Laura Perry in the City Attorney's Office to develop this policy, borrowing from some other cities to come up with this policy. And so this policy basically requires a council member to sponsor a resolution to rename a street anytime they want to rename a street after, again, a significant person in the past of Aurora. 5C is a street renaming portion of East 16th Avenue from Florence to Emporia. For those not familiar with the area, that is the section of 16th Avenue that's in front of Aurora Fire Station number 1. That would rename that honorary rename that portion of 16th Avenue in honor of Reuben Sims Jr. Reuben Sims Jr. was the first Black firefighter in Aurora. He was eventually promoted to an engineer, and there's a lot of history that's included in about Mr. Sims in the backup. And so 5B is the policy, and 5C is a resolution to do an honorary street renaming in honor of Mr. Sims for that portion of 16th Avenue.
Question, let's discuss item number 5B. Is there any discussion on comments, questions on item number 5B?
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, so I guess on the policy, what is the criteria for how we determine who gets named on a street? Because this one, I guess you're sponsoring Reuben Smith or Sims Jr. But in the future for other ones, normally we have public engagement input. Would there be that opportunity, or are we just going to have our own, each council member just come up with their own favorite people to name?
Well, so it would be a council-sponsored resolution, so it would be up to the council. They would have to vote on it. So that would be the criteria. You would need a majority of council to agree with you.
So I guess what I'm asking is, shouldn't it be a little bit wider net than just a council member coming forward with a street naming? Wouldn't it be better to have community engagement on that?
I don't agree with that, no.
Okay, well, then I don't agree. I think there should be some public input. I mean, Mount Evans did not get renamed by one person. It had to have public input.
Well, this is not being renamed by one person. This is being renamed by 10 representatives of the city. We're a representative government.
I also have let me just say, I also have a concern that no input from the residents who the name of the street will be changed really. Further discussion or comments?
And again, the name of the street is not being renamed. It is an honorary renaming.
So how does that, there's no signage associated with that, or how does that work?
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, this is Michelle Gardner from the City Attorney's Office, if I may.
Please.
Mayor and council members, we do have Carly Campuzano from Traffic Engineering present, I believe, as well as Cindy Collop. But this honorary street naming program is a new policy that's attached to the resolution that's being presented. And it can be a street naming that is presented by a council member or by the public. So there's two processes in this attached policy to the resolution. So council members and mayor can propose an honorary street naming that would include adding a sticker to an existing street sign. But again, I will defer to Public Works staff to expand on that. And then if the public has a request for an honorary street naming, then they would submit that to the Public Works director or designee. And the Public Works Department would handle that and require petitions from the citizens before presenting to council. So there are two separate processes as part of this new policy that's attached to the resolution. And then the second request that Mayor Pro Tem Gardner is presenting is specific to when the policy takes effect, then the Reuben Sims Jr. honorary street naming would follow.
So a question to the staff, so this would not change anybody's mailing address, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Councilmember Gardner, for bringing this forward. I do have a question to staff on the revenue impact. It says minimal cost to change street signage. And I'd like to know, like, what's the ballpark for minimal cost? Yeah, I guess, can we start with that?
I can answer that if that's okay. This is Carly Campuzano. I'm the traffic manager in the Public Works Department. So as far as the cost, we're assuming that internal staff would be able to do this type of work, and we have our own sign shop at the city as well. So I think each sign panel would probably cost about $50 to $75, and we would mount like a separate sign panel on top of the existing one. So it's not a new sign or not a full sign structure. It's just essentially like a panel, or if we do a few of them, it could be like a few $100s per request type of thing.
Probably a question. So that's above the existing signage. Does that create any confusion?
So the signs would be a different color, and normally our city public streets are always green with addressing on them. And so when we were looking at this policy, that it seems to be what most other agencies are doing, and I don't think it's necessarily creating confusion. We thought that it would not create the confusion just because the official street name sign is the same, so it's not changing anyone's address, which we do think that could create confusion if we change the actual address. So
further questions, comments?
Yeah, Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Okay, so it goes, I thought it was a sticker, but it's an actual sign panel that would be above the street name. So how many of these can we do? Like, there's no limit. I mean, we could have 100, requests in a year by the public or by a council member.
I mean, I don't think we set a limit on the number of requests, but just knowing how many of these requests have come up, I mean, in the 5 years I've been here, we haven't received a whole lot of this type of request. So we were anticipating like maybe it would be a few per year. So that doesn't amount to too many signs, I wouldn't think, but it also depends on how popular the program would be.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving 5B forward? The mayor objects. Item number 5C. I think we've had a discussion on that. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, do you have any further comments on 5C?
No.
Is there any objection to moving 5C forward? Seeing none, 5C will move forward. Seeing no further business before the Aurora City Council study session, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.